Okay, we're live, baby.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody, to the Pistons Talk Podcast on YouTube. I'm your host, Lance Caparosi. You can follow me on Twitter at Lance Caparosi. Follow my co-host, Anthony, at Pistons Talk across all social media platforms. If you haven't already, he is the man that has built the brand. I just hitched my wagon to it. But anyways, let's get this started. I am underdressed for a typical podcast. I'm on an island right now, and it's kind of warm. And I'm not bragging. I'm just letting you guys know.
He's
I'm not trying
bragging.
to look sexy. I'm not trying to look sexy. Looking
He's
comfortable.
been bragging for 20 minutes. Like, is it snowing in Michigan yet?
Oh, man, I got to find you and hit you with a snowball for making fun of me. All right, we can get this started. I think this is an interesting conversation we're about to have, and I think people that are listening, whether it's on YouTube or later in the week on the audio version, when you're listening to the podcast, I would like to hear your thoughts, whether you want to share them during this podcast or if you want to shoot me a DM. But we're going to talk about Killian Hayes in the way he has played recently and whether any of you guys see an adjustment coming for Cade. I personally don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't. I love Killian's impact and I love the way he's been playing. I just don't know if he's played to such a high standard where you're going to do anything with Cade Cunningham. I think in some smaller, different situations, you might see him play more off the ball, but I still think it's Cade Cunningham's team, even though Killian Hayes has been playing phenomenal these past couple of games.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
If Cade has to move, I don't even think Cade's going to have to move the small forward. I think if he was healthy, if he was coming back today, Killian's going to be back on the bench. I just think that's how it is because Cade at his best is when he has the ball in his hands, and Jaden Ivey can play off the ball. And like I said, you have 3 point guards right now, and I think it's a really good problem to have. Like Killian Hayes averaging 12 and 6, he'd probably be the best backup point guard in the NBA. I think it's a really interesting conversation because I think Cade can play 1 through 3 just because of his size and his length and his ability to create for himself and others.
Yeah, and I think, and you're right, I do think it's an interesting conversation because, Cade is so multi-talented. And I do think if you slid him over to 3 and, let's just say Killian Hayes became the starter, I don't see that happening, but he has been playing well as a starter, so we'll just have to say it. But if Dwayne Casey said, hey, look, we're going to go with Killian Hayes, Jaden Ivey, we're going to play Cade at the 3, I think Cade would be fine. The only problem is you're taking away the best parts of his game, of being the floor general, the lead guard, creating for others. That is what makes Cade so special. So even if Killian is playing at a high level, and even though Cade could play the 3, it just seems like it's a demotion and a waste of his abilities on the basketball floor.
I kind of think of Jason Tatum when I look at Cade a lot. And Boston for years they haven't really had a lead point guard. Obviously they did trade for Malcolm Brogdon, but he doesn't even start most nights. It's usually Marcus Smart. And when it's crunch time, when it's takeover time, or when they need a basket, Jason Tatum will bring the ball up the court. And I think that's where you could have Cade do the same things that Jason Tatum does. Now, I'm not comparing the 2 players because, in my personal opinion, I think Jason Tatum could win MVP this year.
Yeah.
I just think he's just having such a great season. The Boston Celtics are the best team in basketball. But to my point is, I think Cade could play small forward if he wanted to, and he could bring the ball up the court where it really wouldn't hinder his performance.
My thing, though, is if you play Cade off the ball, and I like that you compared him to Jason Tatum, because I talked about this with someone else earlier, that my biggest fear if you do move Cade to the 3, well, one of my other biggest fears is that, one of my biggest complaints about Tatum is he doesn't move well without the ball. Sometimes he just stands still when he doesn't have the ball because he doesn't always, I don't know, maybe not this year, but it seemed like in years past he didn't know what to do when he didn't have the ball. And Cade has always played with the ball. So I'm wondering, if you do move him off the ball, will he know what to do without it? That's another fear. And again, I just don't want to see the best parts of Cade's game being taken away. But I think that's a solid comparison. I just think Cade is such a gifted passer and he understands the game at such a high level that you want to put the ball in his hands no matter what.
Yeah, I don't really have too many concerns with Cade Cunningham. I think what's so special about him is he can play multiple positions, and I've seen him move off the ball. I've seen him come off pin down screens. I've seen him play off the ball, and I've also seen him facilitate as a a 6'6", 6'7" point guard. So he's the one player on this roster where I'm not even concerned about. Like, you can play a power forward. I'm sure he can figure it out. That's just how talented he is.
This is true. So what do you think about like fans saying, I know some of it's a joke, but there's a little truth to it that fans want to see this be Killian Hayes' team. What would you say to them?
Oh, sorry. I was reading the comment. I didn't. Did you repeat what you said? My bad.
Oh, no, it's all good. So I know it's somewhat of a joke with Pistons fans, but there's a little truth to it. And some Pistons fans want to see Killian Hayes. Basically, they want to see the Pistons be his team. Like, what would you say to those fans? Like, would you just just settle down a little bit? We need a few more games under Killian Hayes' belt before we say all that. What would you say to him?
I'm very happy for Killian Hayes. I'll get to your question in a minute, but I was right. I was 100% right. You put the ball in his hands, and what happens?
Yeah.
He was shooting 15% from three when he was playing off ball. Shooting 40% from three with the ball in his hands as a primary ball handler. Now, to Pistons fans saying that this should be Killian's team, the ball should be in his hands, Cade should play off ball, we got to pump the brakes. We're very happy for Killian Hayes. I think that game against the Mavericks was the best game of his career.
Yeah.
But you still have Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey as your backcourt. I think there's room for all three on this team, but I think at the end of the day, I feel more comfortable with the ball in Cade Cunningham's hands over Killian Hayes right now.
Yeah, I would say, too, I think this team it's going to go a lot further with Cade and Ivy starting in the backcourt than it is with Killian Hayes. Again, I'm very happy with Killian Hayes. I'm glad these last 11 or 12 games, whatever it says, he's made me look like an idiot. It sucks that it took so long, because I had to stop believing in him. But I'm glad he's turned it around. It's just that when fans say that, it just irritates me, man. Because this is what I was so afraid of with Killian Hayes. Like, the expectations were so low. He plays well, and now the expectations are through the roof. So then what happens when he has a bad stretch of games? Because that's going to come again for Killian Hayes. I just hope Detroit doesn't rip him apart for it.
Yeah, I think fans are just, like, when they saw that out of him, like him scoring 22 points, hitting back-to-back huge three-point shots, beating Luka Doncic in the Mavericks, I think they're just happy. And, like, we're happy for Pistons fans. We're happy for Killian. I am the biggest Killian defender, and I have been even before, like, we did this podcast. Like, I wanted the Pistons to draft Killian Hayes over Tyrese Halliburton because I didn't think Tyrese Halliburton – I was dead wrong about Halliburton, I'll admit that. But I thought Killian Hayes' potential could be a two-way guard. And I'm really happy that the offense is finally clicking now. Like, his jumper, like, it's staying consistent. Like, his feet aren't, like, swaying to the left or the right. It's just a straight up and down motion now. And he just looks confident. He looks happy. He just looks like the 7th overall pick. And I'm so happy for him.
Yeah, same. And this is what I was telling people because, I liked Killian Hayes, and I always thought he was a good defensive player. I always thought he could, make the right reads when it was past, when he was trying to set the offense and set people up. I thought sometimes he tried to be a little too flashy. My biggest gripe was, dude, if he's not hitting shots, his defense and his playmaking weren't good enough to, counteract how bad he was on offense. Like, he needed to have some semblance of a mid-range game or being able to attack the hoop and score a little bit because it was going to open up things for him. And he's finally figured it all. Well, I shouldn't say finally figured it all out, but he's starting to figure it all out, and he's starting to hit shots with confidence and consistency. And we've seen the way it's opened up his game. His offensive game has been just so much better just because he's been able to hit a few shots. It's been incredible to watch him. It really has been. I can't say enough about the kid.
Not only that, he's finally getting to spots where he's comfortable. Like, the mid-range game, he said that he always had a mid-range game. It's just the shots weren't falling. And I think it was a confidence issue too, and the way that they were using him as more of a off-ball guard. But with him playing on the ball and, running the offense since Cade has been out and Jaden Ivey was out with that knee soreness, you've kind of seen him have more offensive responsibilities, and he's getting to his spots. He's hitting 3-point shots, which is crucial for him. I mean, if I remember last year correctly, he was leading the team in 3-point percentage before he had a thumb injury. Like, I think that you're starting to see the potential being untapped and unlocked, and he hasn't even scratched the surface yet. And that's like, as a Pistons fan, for me to tell other Pistons fans, like, just wait, because there's so much there where it hasn't even been untapped by coaching or player development coaches where they can work with him this summer. Like, it's scary, man, because you still have him on a rookie deal. Obviously, you're going to have to pay him a little bit more than, $5 million. But, I mean, if I'm a Pistons fan, man, like, I'm so happy for the kid.
I mean, it's really cool to see guys like Nekias Duncan tweet about Killian Hayes in a positive light. Like, it's really cool to see that, man. I'm glad all these young guys are starting to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin O'Connor actually got back on the Killian Hayes bandwagon. He ditched him for like a whole year, and now he's back on. I don't think as Pistons fans we should let him back on the bandwagon because he deserted him.
Yeah, no, we'll get into that in a second. We will get into that in a little bit. But we actually don't have any news. News is the next topic that we have coming up. The only news I could find for the week was that, like, apparently Michelob Ultra is going to bring back Detroit Pistons cans. So if you like to drink, there you go.
Bro, I have Michelob Ultra Detroit Pistons cans. Do you want me to go grab? Do you want me to go grab one?
Yeah, go.
Okay, I will be right back because they actually sent me some this past summer. So I'm gonna go. I will be right back to show you guys what they look like because they're really cool.
That's cool. That's cool. Oh, man. Dude, Anthony gets so many cool things. It's awesome. Yeah, for everybody watching, I am in Hawaii if you joined lately, so that's why I'm dressed this way. A little hot right now, too, because I can't have the AC on. It's right behind me, but it would be blowing into the mic, and I would rather have you hear my voice than hear the air conditioning. I'm sure some people would rather hear the air conditioning than my voice, but I would much rather have you hear my voice than the AC. I will say the weird thing about being in island life, and I was telling this to Anthony, is 10:30 in the morning, NBA games are on. It's weird, and I missed it.
All right. So it's a tall boy, so I don't know if you guys can see it. It just says Michelob Ultra. Like, that's the front of it.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about these cans is each team kind of gets like their like city like kind of engraved. Like, if you look at this can, you got Going to Work.
That is cool.
You got the Motor City, Motown. You got the little Pistons teal. You got a Detroit car down here. So kind of like, I don't even drink beer. Like, I'm not a big beer drinker. These have been in my fridge for probably 6 months. Like, straight up, man. Like, they DM me like, hey, we want to send you a care package. And I was like, okay, cool. So they sent me that this past summer with like a little cooler and everything. But that's cool that they're going to be bringing them back and redesigning them, because this is a Pistons fan. Like, when you look at this, like, I'll send you a picture later of what they look like. But I mean, like, the detail on it is so awesome.
Who did a better job of representing the city, Michelob Ultra or Big Sean with his jersey?
Oh, come on, man.
Dude, I'm an instigator. Man. I'm an instigator.
Big Sean, come on, man. Not against Michelob Ultra, but I mean, come on. Big Sean all day.
I'm sorry. I love. You know what? Someone tweeted at me. They said that they hated the St. Celia jerseys, and it blew my mind. I don't know how you hate those jerseys. He said you have to either be a Michigan State fan or a Milwaukee Bucks fan to like them. I just said you don't know the history of the jerseys.
I mean, they're like, at first when I saw like the pictures of them, like when I see a picture of a jersey, it always looks like crap. But when you actually see it in person or you see it on TV, like, those jerseys are really clean. They're nice.
Yeah, they're very nice.
For an alternative jersey, like, it's probably like this year, this is probably the most creative the Pistons have been, just with jerseys in general.
This is true. That's why I didn't like what he said. I was just like, dude, you're an idiot. St. Celia jerseys are cool. Yeah. We can talk about some injuries.
For sure.
So Cade Cunningham's still out. I don't even know if we have really any updates on him. I don't know what the timetable is. I don't know if he's trying to heal it himself or he's going to get surgery, but this seems like something we're going to mention almost every episode. And I don't know if you have any more information on it or if you can update our listeners, but I don't have any news on Cade Cunningham. It just seems like he's going to be out for a while.
No, there hasn't really been any updates. The last thing I read is, he's still exploring options to see if he doesn't have to have surgery, but I think he's just going to be out for the rest of the year, which I'd rather him rest up, heal up, because I don't want him to try to come back. And God forbid, come back and you wreck it even worse. I'd rather him just rest up for the year, rehab that, come back stronger, better, and, just come back for that MVP trophy.
That would be cool. So there was a Twitter fan or someone I follow on Twitter. They had tweeted at me that apparently Cade Cunningham has dealt with this injury since college with the shins.
I don't know about that. Probably the only person that would know about that is probably his brother Cannon or his trainer Ashton would know that for a fact. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up. I just want to know if maybe you had heard something, but
no.
I don't think you ever heard any injuries bothering Cade though when he was coming into the draft, right? But there was no question marks about his health.
No, he just gained a hell of a lot of weight. Like rookie Cade to sophomore Cade, like he bulked up. Like, and I was talking to a doctor, and he said that when the body goes under transformation like that, like the way Cade built muscle, it can actually be really strenuous on your body. And that could be why he did, injure his lower leg and why he's having, discomfort in that. It's because he gained so much muscle this past season and his body hasn't really had time to adjust to it.
That makes sense. I get that. We got another piece of injury news, and this one hurts. This one hurts personally. Dwayne Casey says Isaiah Livers' right shoulder sprain. I don't even know if I'll be able to get through this. Will be out for a while. Doesn't want to put a timetable on it, but the injury occurred when he ran into a screen during Thursday's win over the Dallas Mavericks. This comes from Mike Curtis. This sucks. Isaiah Livers hasn't been playing great. I just love to see him because he's from Kalamazoo. And now he might be fragile, man. Like, that might be his label. Because it seems like, he's only been in the league for 2 years, but since college till now, it seems like he just gets beat down with, these minor injuries. And it's just I think it's going to end up affecting him from, having a toll on him for reaching his potential as an NBA player. And it just kind of sucks. I know it just seems like a small injury, like a sprain, but you can't build consistency when you're always hurt, It sucks. Sucks for Isaiah Livers.
Yeah, it was a freak accident. He ran into a screen. Like, I feel like if you played basketball at any level, you have ran into a hard screen. Like, I remember when I was playing some pickup basketball, and there was this guy who was kind of older, and I set a screen so hard that he broke his collarbone.
Oh my gosh!
Like, it happens when you play basketball. Like, it's just a natural thing. Like, I think he'll be fine. I don't want to. I'm not ready to label him as an injury-prone player. That's a freak injury. It happens to the best athletes in the NBA. So I think he'll come back. And I know it's going to be really hard for you not to talk about Isaiah Livers for who knows how long he's going to be out, but I'm sure you'll find a new favorite player in that timetable.
Are there any more players in the NBA from Kalamazoo? I don't think so. So, but didn't this injury happen to him again in another game? Maybe I was having deja vu, but I feel like he had hurt his shoulder against the Dallas Mavericks earlier, maybe last year. It was kind of almost the same situation. It was early in the game, and before he went out, he had 2 threes. A 3 before the injury and a 3 after the injury. I felt like this has happened to Isaiah Livers before, but I don't know how I would look that up. So
yeah, he'd have to go on YouTube and look up Isaiah Livers highlights versus the Mavericks. I don't know, man, but he was playing really well though. I will give him credit. He was knocking down threes. I was like, oh, is he about to have a breakout game? And then he got injured. And I was like, damn, that sucks. I hate when players get injured, and I feel like when we do the injury report each podcast, it keeps getting longer and longer and longer.
Do we have more injuries? Because I didn't see. Is there any more people that are banged up? Like notable Pistons?
No, I mean just Cade, but Bojan came back. Jade
Yeah,
Ivey finally came back after his knee soreness, so starting to get a little bit healthier. But it seems like every time we get a guy back, someone gets injured. It's never ending.
So do you think we'll get more Kevin Knox minutes, or do you think we'll see a little bit more of Braxton Key or Buddy Boeheim with Isaiah Livers being out?
I think you'll see a combination of Kevin Knox and Hamidou Diallo more.
Ooh, okay.
I don't even think we go that deep, but if we're looking for Buddy Boeheim minutes, man, we're straight tanking. We are.
I only brought up Buddy Boeheim's name because I saw it on Twitter because someone had said, "Are we finally going to see Buddy Boeheim?" And I thought it was so ridiculous. Like I'm like, dude, we got Kevin Knox, we have Diallo, we have Braxton Key, and then there's Buddy. Then there's Buddy. Come on.
Yeah, I was watching a game, a Cruise game, and I was watching him, and I'm like, yeah, he's not ready for the NBA.
You think he'll ever be ready for the NBA based on that game you watched?
I've watched a couple, and I would say he's probably another 2 years away from seeing 10-day contracts.
Oh, he's that. Is there any skill though that he has outside of shooting?
I mean, his playmaking's not bad. It's just he's just not. I don't want to say he doesn't pay attention, but there are times where people just beat him on backdoor cuts way too often. Like his attention to detail on defense and offense, it's just not there. But I don't really think that'll be a problem because we'll probably have a new two-way player next year.
Yeah, this is true. We shouldn't worry about Buddy. All right, let's move on and get into some of these topics because I cannot keep seeing Isaiah Livers hurt shoulder injury in front of my face like that. This is going to be an interesting one because we're really going to talk about Saddiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, and Killian Hayes in the next two topics. But who's more important to this team going forward? Is it Saddiq Bey? Is it Killian Hayes? Or is it Isaiah Stewart? And Anthony, I'll let you take it over because I've been talking a lot.
I think it's Isaiah Stewart.
That's my answer.
For the fact that the Pistons are very stubborn in terms of we want a two-big lineup. We want a two-big lineup. And they've played Isaiah Stewart at the 4 quite a bit. And I did not know that Isaiah Stewart could drive it to the hole. Dude, bro, when I saw that, I was like, holy shit, what the hell just happened? I had to rewind it 3 times. I was like, that wasn't Isaiah Stewart.
But he's done that before, though. He's put the ball on the floor. Not quite like that, but like a straight line drive.
I know he did it against Jokic last year, but you know what I mean? Once in a while you'll see a center do that, but it's whoa, did not know you had that in your bag. I think him, in my personal opinion, is probably the most important Piston going forward, just because I know the Pistons want to play him in a power forward long term. Yeah. They want Duran to be their center, and they want Stewart to be their power forward. So I think his development and him just, being in the starting lineup as a power forward for this team, to me, would be more important than a Saddiq Bey or a Killian Hayes right now.
Have you been impressed with him at the 4?
His shooting has been very impressive. Yeah. And I remember the very first podcast we had, I said, if he's going to, be in a starting lineup, he's going to have to shoot threes more. Yep. And his 3-point shot this year, it's been really great. I think that's what's really going to help him, become a power forward for this team long term.
It's so phenomenal just to watch him and how good how much better he's gotten. He's made it look so easy, just how he's been able to add things. Like when we had Andre Drummond, we're like, man, maybe Andre Drummond will add the 3-point shot. What the fuck was up with Andre Drummond not hitting threes? If Isaiah Stewart can hit him at 34% or whatever he's shooting at right now, and less amount of time than Andre Drummond, it's so crazy to me because I always thought yeah, he might be able to do it in the offseason, but I've never seen it really translate to the NBA from other guys. You know what I'm saying? Andre Drummond was my biggest example because I've watched more Pistons games than any other team. Yeah. But it's just phenomenal what Isaiah Stewart has done. And I agree with you. I think he is the most important of these 3 going forward just because he's so versatile. He can defend a handful of positions. offensively, you can put him in the post. And if like we watched him last year against Jason Tatum, where I think he had 18 points against the Boston Celtics. And I mean, he looked like a freak. He looked like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the post. It was crazy against Jason Tatum. But then he can shoot the three, and it's just – and now he's driving to the basket. He is the most important Piston out of these three going forward. And it's – I just don't think you can make a case for the other two.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends, like, where you want to take this topic at. Like, if you're talking about, let's say one of these players got traded and we didn't get a lot in return, I think probably the biggest impact player on this list would be Killian Hayes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because Killian Hayes' defense and passing would be very hard to replace.
And the reason I don't have Killian higher is because we already have Jaden Ivey and Cade, where it's like, okay, we got 3-point guards. You know what I'm saying? Great problem to have, but it kind of diminishes, Killian Hayes going forward because, there's a very real possibility where Troy Weaver's like, man, now that his value's high, we're just going to ship him out. I'm not saying that's what he'll do, but that is a very real possibility. And then with Saddiq Bey, it's just, he's just too inconsistent right now. And if he's not hitting shots, I don't know what else he brings to the table at that high of a level yet. That's it. So I would probably – how would you rank them, though, going forward as most important? Because I would have Stewart, Killian, Saddiq Bey. What about you?
I would probably have Stewart, Killian, Saddiq Bey. I think players like Saddiq Bey are easy to find in the draft.
Yeah.
Or in free agency. I mean, you look at Lou Dort. He was in the G League. Like there's tons of 3-and-D wings. Most of them just don't hit threes. But you know what I mean? Like they play in a 3-and-D role, but they usually don't hit threes because the ones that do get paid a lot.
Yep.
I think Killian is very important, and I think his skill set would be very hard to replace. Of having a guy that can defend. I've seen him guard freaking centers.
Yeah.
Like he can guard 1 through 5. And he can pass. I think he's one of the best passers in the NBA. His passing's phenomenal. His offense is starting to click. So I would put him at number 2. Or I would put Isaiah 1, Killian 2, and then Saddiq 3. Just because, there's something there with Isaiah Stewart that, like, if he can kind of develop, an all-around game at the power forward position, then Pistons might have something there.
Do you see his career being closer to PJ Tucker's or Al Horford's? I think those are two. He's kind of in that category of player where he's not like overly athletic, but he gets by hard work and skill. And I think Al Horford and PJ Tucker kind of done the. I mean, they're both. Every NBA player is a great athlete. Don't get me wrong, but there are levels to it. And I'm just, you know what I mean.
Yeah, not this year, PJ Tucker, because he's gone I don't know.
Yeah, no, he's trash.
I've always looked at him as like a Paul Millsap type player. Like you said, Al Horford. Al Horford to me is just so unique because his ability to pass, his ability to shoot threes, play defense, protect the rim. I don't think Stewart's there, but I think Paul Millsap to me is more of a obtainable player he could be. And Paul Millsap was a hell of a player when he was in Atlanta. I think a lot of people forget that. Like he had a nice mid-range game. He could hit the occasional 3. He could grab some boards, hustle his ass off. You never seen him really lose his cool. So I think that's the type of player Stewart could be if his 3-point shot in his mid-range game continued to develop.
Yeah, I guess I probably should have put that. I was thinking Paul Millsap, and I should have put his name in there because I do like that comparison. I will say the only difference is that I think Paul Millsap was just a more explosive of an athlete than Isaiah Stewart. But I do love that comparison. I think that's a solid comp as well. So you're an expansion NBA franchise. I like this topic. And the NBA says you can pick either Saddiq Bey, Killian Hayes, or Isaiah Stewart. Who are you taking from the Pistons to start your team with? Now, this isn't like their franchise player, but we know how expansion drafts work. So you get a
I mean, if you were starting a team today and you could only pick between Saddiq Bey, Killian Hayes, and Isaiah Stewart, I'm going to pick Killian Hayes.
Yeah. And then you get to pair him up with Victor Wembanyama next season.
I think you always have to start with the point guard on your team. You have to find a guard that you can build around because right now in the NBA it's a guards league. Like, you look at the Steph Currys, you look at the John Morants, you look at the Darius Garlands, it's a guards league. Like, Killian, to me, like I said previously in the other topics we had, he hasn't even scratched the surface yet. Like, if his offense comes around, like, two-way point guards are very hard to find. Like, you look at Drew Holiday. Like, Drew Holiday is an NBA championship. He's won an NBA championship with the Bucks. Like, Drew Holiday's been such a great problem. We've even seen Pistons fans compare Killian to Drew Holiday as of late because his offense is starting to come around. So I would build around Killian Hayes if I had to build between those three players.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing based on the point that you had made earlier in the podcast, is that he's just scratching the surface of his potential right now. And, we kind of already know what Isaiah Stewart and Saddiq Bey are. We still both value those players. But Killian Hayes and the way he's been playing, you're like, oh, man, dude, this dude really could turn the table and be something even more than what he is right now. And, there was a time we were talking like Saddiq Bey was the best out of that draft class of those three. Then it was Isaiah Stewart. But now, even just in like a 12 games, whatever it's been, I think you can say, Killian Hayes was really the right choice at 7 over the other two, just because of, what he's doing now and what his potential, what he could be down the line. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think it would go Killian Hayes. Where would you rank those three based on that question, though, if you were an expansion team? So Killian Hayes is number 1. Would Isaiah Stewart be number 2 for you or number 3?
He'd be number 3. I'd put Saddiq at 2.
Okay. Why is Saddiq at 2 for the expansion question, but not the value of the Pistons?
I think with Saddiq, he's shown you flashes of where he can score. And he's shown you flashes when he's locked in, he can play defense. But I think the reason why I would have him at 2 in an expansion draft is 3 and D wings, like I said earlier, the ones that can make threes and play defense, like the Kawhi Leonards, the Paul Georges, they're making over $100 million. Like, they make a lot of money. I think Saddiq Bey has the potential to reach that, but I don't think we're going to see it for probably another 2 to 3 years. I think it's there. We've seen flashes of it. Like the Warriors game I always bring up, perfect example of what Saddiq Bey could actually be.
Okay. All right, I like that answer right there. That's a good one, man. It really is. Do you think Saddiq Bey being the number 1 on a team, like giving it the keys to a franchise, it would be like if Tobias Harris got the keys to a franchise to be the guy? I always think those two are kind of similar as players. I don't know why.
They kind of are and they aren't at the same time. Like, Tobias in Detroit, like, he was a pretty good three-point shooter. His first year, he wasn't that good, but his second year under Van Gundy, when they put him and Morris at the forwards, he was pretty good. Defensively, he just wasn't big enough to, guard. Like, we got killed in the Cleveland series because Kevin Love was just too big and Tobias Harris couldn't guard him.
Yeah,
I think Saddiq Bey, where he has an edge over Tobias Harris is just strength, and he's just, he's more muscular and he's stronger. So, yeah, I don't know, like Saddiq, like I'm really hoping he can turn into like a Desmond Bane type player. Like that's my goal. Like if he turns into that, like people would just shut up. They would love him.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I really do see a world where Saddiq Bey averages like 22 to 23 points a game for like 4 to 5 years in the NBA. I see a world where he can do that. I just don't know if it's in Detroit, Yeah,
it's crazy because all these guys are in their 3rd year. And a lot of Pistons fans are like, well, Dwayne Casey doesn't develop anything. Well, I've actually seen development like all 3 years with all these players. Like, I've seen Saddiq Bey improve of, driving the basket to the hole. Like his first year in the league, he would not drive that. He would not drive the ball to the basket at all. He was like scared to. Killian Hayes, I've actually seen him this year develop more of an offensive game. Isaiah Stewart, I've seen him get better out of the dribble handoffs and his 3-point shot. Like these guys are developing, but just not like at a rate that Pistons fans, I guess, actually want. And I think it's really fun to have these conversations because like these guys are all scratching the surface. They're not even at their potential yet. You won't know what they are probably for another 3 to 4 years until they're in their prime. And they're actually contributing to being competitive every night.
That's what I love the most is just how competitive these guys have made Detroit. Even like back to their rookie years. Like obviously they weren't winning, but it was just fun to see them put up a fight against some of these NBA teams. It was a lot of fun. what teams do you think the Pistons will have a better future than? You got to think of teams of like young stars. Like I'm thinking Boston, Dallas, Memphis, New Orleans, Orlando. Like, do you think the Pistons have a better future than all those teams that are built around young stars, or where do you think they fall in line amongst those other teams?
I gotta take Boston out.
Okay.
Because I feel like Boston, they're like a veteran team to me now.
Okay.
You don't really see, like, outside of like the OKC Thunder team that went to the finals, like, you don't really see, teams under 24, 25, like, make the NBA finals, and they did. When I look at young teams that the Pistons could, possibly be better than, I thought they were better than Indiana. That's not the case. I think the young cores, I'm only thinking of two, and that's Houston and Orlando. I think they're better than both of them.
But you don't, so like you wouldn't throw New Orleans in there as like a younger team that?
Oh, they're a younger team. They're just better than us. Like their core's way deeper. Like
yeah, but I'm just saying, like a few years down the line, do you think the Pistons will have a better future than that team? Like I know New Orleans has a better core now, but I'm just saying in a few years, like I mean, who knows if they don't go far, maybe they blow it up with Zion and Brandon Ingram or something like that. I don't know. I look at some of these teams, like I think the Pistons have a better future than Dallas, even though they do have Luka Doncic. It's just I don't know. I don't think they know how to build around Luka. Like I don't like the heliocentric offense because I was watching Christian Wood and I'm like, dude, you don't even allow him to create, and he's a guy that can create his own shot unless Luka's not on the floor. I don't know how you're going to be successful with that. It's just like basically having a bigger Allen Iverson. And
yeah, that's Dallas's biggest problem. They don't know how to surround Luka with talent. But I don't know what the Pistons' future holds. I don't know what we're going to do during the trading deadline. I don't know how aggressive we're going to be this free agency because we're going to have a lot of cap space. But we also have to, pay Sadiq, pay Killian, pay Isaiah Stewart. I just don't know, man. Like, it would be really hard for me to say that the Pistons have a brighter future than the Pelicans because I think the Pelicans are going to be a playoff team this year. It'd be really hard for me to say that they have a better future than the Kings, because Troy Weaver could just use most of her cap space and trade for someone this year. Like he could go out and go trade for a Karis LeVert, We just don't know. Like Troy Weaver, since he's been here, hasn't really been that aggressive with going after like marquee names. Like the biggest name he went after was Jeremy Grant. He made $20 million. Like probably his best trade so far in his tenure was getting Bojan for basically nothing because teams were afraid that he would want the bag and he resigned for basically what he was making. So it'd be really hard for me to say that the Pistons have a brighter future than all those teams that you did name. I'm going to have to see what Troy does this trading deadline and free agency for me to be confident in saying, yeah, the Pistons have a better future than those teams that you suggested.
Well, I was throwing those also down as kind of like examples of young teams, or at least where I thought were young teams, because I just kind of look at Boston and I made them a young team just because of Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I was like, well, yeah, you're built around those two young guys, but also the reason I'm so invested and I guess I think of the Pistons' future so highly is because of Troy Weaver. I feel like the moves he has made, they've been they like you can almost see the finished puzzle, with the pieces he has put in. But with Houston, yeah, you got Jalen Green, you got Jabari Smith, you got Sengun, but like it kind of already looks like right now, like do they even all fit? You know what I mean? Are they all, and same with Orlando too, where like you got a lot of great young pieces, but in a few years, does it all fit? And I think New Orleans is the same way too, where they collected a lot of young talent, but they weren't thinking of how they would all fit down the line. But I think Troy Weaver has, and we're going to get into this in a little bit when we talk about one of these topics coming up about like, fit and what they could have done. But I feel like with Troy Weaver, every pick he has made, there's been a reason. Even if there might have been a better player available, he made the pick going forward towards the future to build this team in the right way. And I just feel like those other teams, they really, outside of Memphis did it the right way. I love the way Memphis built their team. And we've talked about that before too, like just building it through the draft. Like they did a great job of it. So I would probably say Memphis has a way better future than Detroit just because they already got all those pieces in place and they are winning basketball games. But for Detroit, I mean, it's mainly just I just have so much confidence in Troy Weaver and what he's done, and that's why I think the Pistons have the brightest future.
I think a collection of talent. Houston has a lot of players that I was very high on, like Josh Christopher. I love Josh Christopher. I thought he was a really good guard coming out of his draft class. Was really high in Sengun. I was surprised he dropped out of the lottery. And Sengun is showing you that he could be like a Nikola Jokic light.
Yeah.
Like if you built a team around him, you would basically have, shooters and just a really good basketball team. But I think Houston's problem right now is coaching. And I don't think Steven Silas knows how to, utilize everybody because he's got so much young talent on his roster. I was thinking about a team that I kind of want the Pistons to emulate, and that's Cleveland. Mm-hmm. Because I think Cleveland has drafted well, but they've also been in a lot of great trades.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, if you look at if you look at previous drafts when they drafted Colin Sexton, then Garland, then Okoro, then Mobley, and then they trade for a Karis LeVert, they trade for a Jared Allen, they trade for a Donovan Mitchell. Like, they put themselves in a position to be open in the open trade market, but also draft really well. And I think that's what you have to do when you're a smaller market. You have to put yourself in trades. Like, Troy Weaver wanted Marvin Bagley, and he got Marvin Bagley. Like, the Kings wanted Sadiq Bey for Marvin Bagley. We're like, nah, we'll give you a second-round pick, and that's what we got. Like, Troy Weaver is a very patient guy, and if he wants a guy, he will wait and pounce on the opportunity to get the guy and not, mortgage the future. He doesn't seem like a GM to me that's going to mortgage the future for a player because he'll just, he'll wait. He'll be strategic about it.
Dude, and that's why I am so... I'm just so confident because the team is in his hands. Like, even when I think I need to question a decision he has made, it turns out to be a great decision. Like, it's hard for me to get mad at the guy. Even when we were like, well, look at Tyrese Halliburton. It's like, dude, yeah, but Killian Hayes is playing well now, and there's other things he does for this team. Like, it just makes sense. And I'm not even disappointed that there were players that are playing at a higher level drafted after these guys. I mean, I guess Desmond Bane, that one hurts a little bit, but just because they promised him. But
yeah, I mean, we could have a whole podcast of players that got promised to get drafted by Detroit, but I'm not going down that rabbit.
No, we're not going to. And I just realized this next topic is going to be kind of funny based on what I just said, because I just said that Troy Weaver's never made any mistakes. But do you think Troy Weaver made a mistake drafting 3-point guards in back-to-back drafts?
No, I don't. I think we're just going to break it down. I think the COVID year, the 2020 draft, obviously the season ran short. Pistons didn't get to play the Wolves 2 more times. If they do, who knows? Maybe you got Anthony Edwards or LaMelo Ball, but you land with Killian Hayes, who was projected as one of the best point guards out of that draft class. Him, Tyrese Halliburton, RJ Hampton, and Cole Anthony were the best point guards out of that draft class, and the Pistons went with the guy that had the most potential. So they take Killian Hayes in 2020. 2021, they get lucky. They win the lottery. They take the best player available. The best player was Cade Cunningham, obviously. Don't really consider Cade a point guard. He's more of a forward that plays point guard. Fast forward to this year, you get Jaden Ivey at 5. Bro, man, that was like just, you get an extra Christmas present at Christmas. The Kings just gifted us Jaden Ivey, and I thought that was the right pick. I don't fault Troy Weaver for taking, back-to-back-to-back guards, because I feel like you have to take best player available when you're drafting. You see teams draft for fit, but it's usually championship teams. It's not rebuilding teams.
The reason I'm bringing this up is I had a friend, he messaged me on Instagram, and he was saying, he's like, he thought it was a mistake that he drafted 3 guards. But then I saw you had tweeted out that you were talking about Keontae George and how the Pistons need a pure shooting guard. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, that might have been, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love the picks that Troy Weaver has made, but like maybe drafting a shooting guard instead of another point guard, that might have been the right move. I mean, I don't know. We won't know for a couple more years. I obviously think Cade and Jaden Ivey will work. I just thought it was kind of funny when you're looking at it, you're like, oh, they drafted 3 point guards. And eventually one of these dudes is going to leave the team because there's not going to be enough minutes to go around for all three of them because they all are like it's not even like they're different types of point guards too. Like they can all kind of shoot it now and score, but they also like to try to pass it and create for others. They they're like if Jaden Ivey was just like a scoring point guard, I'd be like, all right, cool, it makes a little bit more sense. But he likes to distribute and he likes to play make. Like they all like to do it. So I think that is going to eventually be a problem for him because, like I said earlier, if you move Cade off the ball, you're taking away some of the best parts of the game. And we already saw it with Killian Hayes. When you moved him off the ball, he looked like shit. And now when you put him back on the ball, he looks a lot better. And then with Jaden Ivey, he's just playing really well right now. We don't really have enough to go on what he would look like with a healthy Killian and Cade playing minutes with him. So I don't know. I don't think it's a big mistake, but I do think it's going to cost the Pistons something down the line.
Yeah, I think my point with the whole tweet is you have three guards, right? I mean, unless you're counting on Gabriel Procida to be the second coming of Kobe Bryant, like, I think Procida will have a good career. I think he'll contribute, but I don't know how ready he is to play, even though he's tearing it up in the EuroLeague right now. My whole point with that tweet is you don't have a shooting guard outside of Alec Burks.
Yeah.
And is Alec Burks going to be here for the next 5 to 10 years? Probably not. Like, the Pistons don't have a shooting guard. They have point guards that play shooting guard. And I think that's why so many Pistons fans during the draft were very high on Shaedon Sharpe and they were very high on Benedict Mathurin.
Yep.
Because they're like, yo, we got Cade at the point guard, but we need a backcourt mate for him to grow with. And I think a lot of Pistons fans wanted Sharpe and they wanted Mathurin because they wanted a pure shooting guard. And both of those guys were the best shooting guards out of their draft class. The reason why I mention Keontae George is because he is one of the better shooting guards coming out of this draft class, and he can distribute the basketball at a very high level.
But like Benedict Mathurin, like Shaedon, and like Keontae, they can all play off the ball. They don't need the ball in their hands to be effective. But Killian, like we've seen, needs the ball in his hands. Jaden Ivey needs the ball in his hands. Cade needs the ball in his hands. That's why I can see why people would say, is it a mistake? Is it a mistake to draft 3-point guards like that? But also at the same time, the Pistons were in a position where you just need to take the most talented players and roll the dice and see what works. So it's hard to say Troy Weaver made a mistake, but I get where people are coming from when they say that. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say you're a stupid fan for saying that your opinion is that Troy Weaver shouldn't have drafted 3-point guards in a row. Like, no. I mean, I get the complaint out of it. I mean, I get it, but we'll see. Ginobili or Gigi Tatome. Dude, just two different extremes. That's awesome.
Yeah, so if you guys are watching on the YouTube chat, we do encourage you guys to comment because we will put your comments on the screen as you guys are watching. This comes from Dominic Davis saying that Gabriel Procida is either going to be our Manu Ginobili or Gigi Tatome. Yeah, I mean, you just don't know. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Mario Hezonja a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, very similar. He's not the athlete, because I think Procida has just hops. Like, he's very athletic. But just, like, his three-point shot reminds me a lot of a Hezonja. And I was watching a highlight, and he splashed a three over Mario Hezonja's face. I was just
really?
Like, yeah, because Mario Hezonja went back over to play basketball in the EuroLeague, and that's where Procida's playing right now. And like, he's very interesting as a prospect. Like, if he hits, Pistons look really smart. Really smart.
It's so crazy that there's that one fan on Twitter that just pushes for Gabriel Procida so hard. And it's like, dude, it's actually unfolding before our eyes in Europe. That's really cool. So we're going to talk about a 2022 NBA redraft coming from Kevin O'Connor, which is actually going to tie into our last topic of Troy Weaver making a mistake of drafting 3-point guards. So do you want to take this one over and share everybody with what Kevin Connor's redraft would look like?
Yeah, so I did post a video this morning about it, but I didn't really go too much in depth with it, but we're going to go more in depth with the podcast. So Kevin O'Connor did a way too early redraft. And obviously, with this redraft, he doesn't have the Detroit Pistons selecting Jaden Ivey. He doesn't have Jalen Duren available at 13. He had the Detroit Pistons selecting Shadon Sharp at 5 because he felt that, the Pistons, like I said, needed a shooting guard next to Cade Cunningham, and he felt like Shadon Sharp in Detroit would have more of a bigger role, obviously, and more responsibilities, and the Pistons would have a go-to scorer, at 5. And he had Jaden Ivey slipping all the way to 8th to the Pelicans, which I thought was just mind-boggling. Like, if Jaden Ivey went to the Pelicans, like I said in my video, like that would be crazy because that's exactly what they need right now. They need a point guard. They don't have a point guard. Like, CJ McCollum plays point guards for the Pelicans right now. Like, that's how bad their point guard depth is. And, like, Kyber Lewis is looking like a draft bust for them. My biggest thing with this redraft is, like you said, it's way too early to make these predictions. But I think if there was a draft now, I think the Pistons still take Ivy at 5. I don't think they second guess it.
No, I think they take Ivy at 5. And I don't think there's no way Ivy slips out of the 5. There's just no way. I would not. I don't believe that. But I do understand why he's saying Shadon Sharp at number 5 because of what you were saying. Like, they do need a shooting guard, and I agree with them saying the Pistons would take a 2 guard at the 5. I agree with Kevin O'Connor at that, but I don't think they. I think that if anything, they might take Benedict Mathurin over Jaden Ivey. I think if Troy Weaver would redo that might maybe he would take Benedict Mathurin at 5 over Ivy, just based on the way Benedict Mathurin has played for Indiana, his fit with Cade. That might be the only one. I don't think Troy Weaver would take Shadon Sharp though in a redraft over Jaden Ivey. I think 9 times out of 10 it's Jaden Ivey at 5 for Troy Weaver. But if Benedict Mathurin was there, I think with hindsight now, he might take Benedict Mathurin over Ivy.
Yeah, I still love the pick by Detroit. I thought Ivy at 5 was just a slam dunk.
Same.
Like, his talent, like I told you, I wouldn't be surprised if he went top 4. Obviously, the Kings did go with Keegan Murray. And to me, I thought Keegan Murray for them, like if the Kings were in a different part of, just as a team and not making the playoffs, they'd probably take Jaden Ivey. But they're trying to compete for the playoffs, and they drafted for fit, not best player available. Because to me, I don't think Keegan Murray was the best player available at 4.
Isn't it kind of weird? Where's he even at on this mock draft? Did he just slip completely out of the lottery in this one?
He went, I think I added it to the prep. I believe he went to 6th.
He did okay. I didn't even see the 6th pick to Indiana. Wow. Okay. The other thing is that they have Walker Kessler going to Detroit at 13. How would you feel about that?
That's the one thing where I think he has a very good game. I think he's an efficient monster. Like, his efficiency numbers are off the charts, but I just don't know if he would have the same efficiency here. Because I think the way Utah is coached, like, we played Utah, like, they moved the ball really well. Like, you can tell that their head coach came, from the Boston Celtics, because that ball just moves left to right. No one has the ball in their hands for more than maybe 3 seconds at a time. I don't know if Detroit could kind of replicate that kind of ball movement and, the open looks that Walker Kessler does get in Utah. I think he's a good player, but I don't think I would reach for him at 13.
See, I think at 13, though, with Marvin Bagley and Isaiah Stewart on this team, I would like to see the rotation similar how they're doing with Duren. Like, I think let me walk that back. I think the efficiency would still be there. I don't think it would be quite Utah level, but I think it would still be there because he's a pretty smart player. He doesn't take bad shots. And what I love about his game mostly is the rebounding, but the shot blocking. Like, he's had, I think he's had one game where he only played 15 minutes, but he had 4 or 5 block shots. He's good at protecting the rim. And I think, man, I still would rather take Duren at 13. I would rather have the draft go the way Troy Weaver had it go. I'd much rather have it that way. But for the sake of the redraft, I kind of like Walker Kessler at 13 if Duren wasn't on the board. I think that'd be a really good fit for Detroit because he gives you great size up front. And, he can take it. He can shoot it outside. He can block shots. And I think just like Duren, he would fit in well, whether he's playing on the floor with Bagley or Isaiah Stewart. I think it would just make sense with either one of those guys at 13.
Yeah, I think it would. But my question is to you, because I know you're a huge Walker Kessler fan. I feel like you've mentioned him at least 10 times since we started doing podcasts. Do you think his ceiling is closer to a Zubac in LA?
Yeah, I would say Zubac, and there was another player. I have it on the tip of my tongue. But, yeah, I would probably say that. Or even someone a little bit more defense, but kind of like Troy Murphy a little bit. Do you remember Troy Murphy for Golden State? He was bigger. He could block shots. He could take it outside. Kind of similar to that. I would say somewhere in those kind of lines. Like, not going to be an all-star, but very efficient and, can help your team win. But Zubac, yeah, that's a pretty good comparison. But I don't know. I think I like Walker Kessler more than I like Zubac.
Yeah, it's funny because we were talking about, I think it was like Sadiq Bey trades because the Clippers said that they like called the Pistons about him. And we're just like, yeah, maybe we can get Zubac for Isaiah Stewart. And then he goes for almost a 30-30 game as I say that. I'm like, dude, come on, man.
30-29. It was a hell of a game for freaking Zubac. It was incredible for him. Just one rebound away. Didn't Andre Drummond almost have a 30-30 game?
Yeah, he did. I think, I don't remember who the last player. It might have been Whiteside, I believe. I think Whiteside had a 30-30 game in Miami.
Okay, because I was going to say, I thought Kevin Love almost had one in Cleveland when LeBron, I think at first left, he almost had a 30-30 game.
I mean, he used to get him in Minnesota, like on a nightly basis, it seems like.
Dude, his Minnesota numbers, by the way, if you have a chance to go, I'm just not talking to you, Anthony, I'm just talking to everybody listening. Like, if you have a chance to go look at Kevin Love's numbers in Minnesota, freaking insane, dude. But they didn't win anything.
Yeah.
Minnesota has been like the biggest. They have wasted the most talent. Jeez.
So we have a lot of comments about like just like who they would take. So yeah. Mr. Hot Take Bravo said that he would take Duren over Ivy at 5.
No, I don't believe you, Bravo.
You know what? I've done shows with Bravo. He probably believes that. Like he's okay. The big. Like even though I do call him crazy, I do have to give him credit. I remember I was giving him shit when he told me that Blake Griffin would average 10 points. I think his final year with the Pistons, and he averaged like 11 points. I was just like, holy shit, he was right. So I got to give Bravo props. Like, he's a big supporter of the channel, and he used to do shows with him all the time with Detroit Drew and JMO. So miss you, Bravo.
Okay, I did read that wrong. It says I would take Duren over Ivy at 5. Okay, I was kind of interpreting it as that he thinks okay, never mind. I get it. Yeah, that's cool, Bravo. I still take Ivy over Duren, though.
We do have another question about 13 now. I think this is interesting because this guy has kind of been a really good pick for Houston.
Oh, my gosh. Did you lose me?
No, and it's Tari Eason at 13.
Okay, I'm sorry if you guys lost me for a second. I take Tari Eason at 13. I haven't seen enough of Tari Eason play, though, but I've heard a lot of good things. But I think I would still take Duren at 13. I just think that's too big of a steal at 13.
You didn't watch Eason in the I was going to call it the G League, the Summer League?
I heard about it. I didn't see him in the Summer League, though.
Bro, that guy can rebound like crazy. Like, people were comparing him and San Antonio's Spurs draft pick, Shohan, to Rodman.
Yeah.
Like, it is crazy. Like, Tari Eason's a really good pick. Like, Houston drafts players that, like, I want, and I know I'm not going to have on my team.
I'm just going to look up Tari Eason's numbers.
Yeah, but I think Duren at 13, obviously, to me, was the right pick. In Charlotte, like, even Charlotte Hornets fans are just, like, down bad with Mark Williams because Mark Williams doesn't play it, like, at all for them.
Which is kind of surprising because I feel like I've looked up Mark Williams' numbers, and I didn't think at the time when I looked them up they were that bad for how little he was playing. But
yeah.
No, I looked up Tari Eason's numbers. I mean, I've heard the name, but 8 and 5 at 40% from the field. I'll take Duren. I just think Duren's potential defensively is just through the freaking roof, man. Like he could be a real game changer on that side of the ball.
Yeah, like honestly, he if he starts hitting jump shots, like I think I said it against who we play the Mavs last. If that jump shot starts falling, man, like it's over. Like it's over for the league. Like I know I compared him to Bam Adebayo, like because of his passing and just his ability to protect the rim, but he's already a better rim protector than Bam. But if he can start, hitting those jump shots and passing at a high level, like you literally have Bam Adebayo 2.0 in Detroit.
Which is crazy because Bam is actually a pretty good defender too. Like he was a defensive player of the year candidate. And Duren's potential is just through the roof. Mark Williams, though, in 4 minutes per game, 4 points, 57% from the field, and 3 rebounds. I don't know why he's not playing. If you're Charlotte, just let him play. See what you got, unless he's hurt.
I mean, they did the same thing with James Bouknight last year when James Borrego was the head coach. Like they did not play James Bouknight at all. And I don't know if James Bouknight even gets any playing time. I know he had some off the court issues, but half of Charlotte's roster has had off the court, issues getting arrested for some reason. It must be a Charlotte thing.
There must not be anything to do in Charlotte. Do we have any Q&A questions?
Yeah, I do have a couple that I did save during the podcast. We have 8 so far.
Awesome.
So this came from 313 Locked because we were talking about, if we would move Cade to small forward, and this is an NBA draft question. If we did land with the second overall pick, do you draft Scoot Henderson?
I think that you have to because he's super talented, right? Like you have to draft him at number 2 because he's one of the best prospects in the draft. But damn, we just talked about them drafting 3 guards in a row, and it's like, oh my gosh, are we gonna have a lineup of Killian, Ivy, Scoot, and then Cade, and then Duren? Like that doesn't make any sense. So I think you have to draft Scoot, but then you're gonna have to seriously make some trades and try to figure this all out. Because if not, you're eventually gonna have someone just bolt and leave, and you're gonna get nothing out of it.
Yeah, I think if you're a 2, you draft Scoot because I feel like right now in the NBA draft, 1A is Victor and 1B is Scoot Henderson. And then that's when the draft doesn't start until 3, in my personal opinion. Because then that's when you start seeing like the Nick Smith Juniors and other players like that, the Amin Thompsons, But I think if you're Detroit and you're lucky enough to get the number 2 pick, yes, you draft Scoot. Now, to your point, that would be 4 guards. What are you going to do? Because Scoot Henderson is very good with the ball in his hands. Yeah. But so is Cade Cunningham, and so is Jaden Ivey, and so is Killian Hayes. And to your point, you either trade Scoot Henderson and the draft pick, or you trade either, Killian Hayes, because I doubt you're going to trade Cade Cunningham or Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, that would be the tricky thing because, let's just say Cade, Killian, Ivy, and the Pistons draft Scoot Henderson. Let's say all 4 reach their potential. There's no way all 4 of them can work together on the team. And you would probably be saying bye-bye to 2 of them. And it's probably Jaden Ivey and Killian Hayes that you're going to say peace. And if you're okay with that, when you get Scoot at number 2, you're going to have to live with those. You're going to have to live with that.
Yeah, to me, that's where it gets tricky because, to your point, we already have 3 guards. Now, like I said earlier, I don't envision Cade as a guard. He can play the guard because, to me, Cade's more of a point forward. He's more of like that Grant Hill archetype where, he can score, he can facilitate, he can play defense, but Cade's natural position is small forward. He's not a point guard, but he plays point guard because he has really good pass, court vision. But that was a really good question, 313 Locked. That would be a really good problem to have if you're Detroit. Like, I know when I was going to do a podcast Wednesday, but something came up, a lot of Pistons fans right now would say, I would rather trade the pick if we don't get Victor. So I want to ask you that. If the Pistons don't land the first overall pick, do you trade the pick?
No, I think Scoot Henderson's talent is too much. I think, look, you could probably get away with Scoot, Jaden Ivey, and Cade Cunningham, but, starting. Like you were saying, Cade playing at the 3. I just think Scoot Henderson is too talented of a player to pass up. You do not trade that draft pick. You draft him, and you trade the lesser of the talented players away. That is what you do. You do not – I understand. People are looking at Killian Hayes with rose-colored glasses on right now. I get it. He has played well these past couple of games. I get it. But let's not forget all of those games up until this point. Let's not write off Scoot Henderson in a very, who is a very talented player, because Killian Hayes has lived up to being the 7th overall pick for 12 games. Let's pump the brakes on that.
Yeah. Like I said, it would be a really good problem to have, in my personal opinion, but we're going to have to wait and see. And the draft is like 6 months away, you guys.
Yeah. Fun question.
For sure. I feel like we've answered this question before, I think last week, because we were talking about Saddiq Bey. This is actually a Saddiq Bey trade question. If you're Troy Weaver and Golden State offers Jonathan Kuminga for Saddiq Bey, do you say yes?
Yeah, but I think he added Rodney McGruder into this one last week. I think it was Saddiq Bey and Rodney McGruder for Jonathan Kuminga, which would make Klay Thompson happy. Yeah, I think you got to take a chance on Jonathan Kuminga for Saddiq Bey. Because I just said this on Twitter, I think Saddiq Bey is a lot closer to his ceiling than most Pistons fans. And I think with Jonathan Kuminga, there's just so much more to be opened up. But it would still be hard for me to get rid of Saddiq Bey, but I would make that trade. Because, one, it puts Saddiq Bey in a better position to be more of, who he is on that team. And then plus it gives Jonathan Kuminga a little bit of breathing room and a longer leash to make mistakes. Because in Golden State, man, like if he makes a mistake, they take him off. He doesn't have a chance to grow. And he could be a very dangerous and scary player in a few seasons if he's in the right environment.
Yeah, I think you're correct with that. But I look at Golden State's young core. Like, I look at Kuminga. I look at Wiseman, who's in the G League. I look at a Moses Moody. Golden State is in a win-now situation.
Yeah.
And I think all those players that I just mentioned, you could start a conversation with Golden State. Like, I know Troy Weaver was extremely high on James Wiseman, and there were reports out that if the Pistons they get a top pick, he was going to draft James Wiseman over a LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards. You could probably get James Wiseman right now on the cheap. Because he's just like, even though you do have a lot of centers, I think James Wiseman would still be interesting. I see where he's coming with Kuminga. It's just, I don't know. Like, I feel like you could get more for just a Saddiq Bey for Jonathan Kuminga. I think Golden State could do better than that.
What if it was Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga for Saddiq Bey? Would you pull the trigger on that trade? Or Moses Moody and James Wiseman?
I don't think they would offer Moses Moody and James Wiseman, but if they did Moody and Kuminga, I would consider it. Like if that was on the table.
Do you think Golden State's higher on Wiseman or Jonathan Kuminga? Because it doesn't feel like they're very high on Wiseman.
No, I think Golden State's just in a position where they're trying to win and they don't have time to develop talent. Like their window rate, they have a very small window, in my opinion, to continue to compete. Like even though Klay Thompson has played better, they paid all that money to Jordan Poole. They don't have enough money to pay Draymond Green, so they're gonna have to make some financial decisions over the next year or so of what they want to do. And I think what's probably going to happen is you're going to see a lot of the young core get traded in attempts for veteran pieces that could, try to compete for the playoffs and win more championships.
Yeah, but I've always been in the school of thought that if you give young guys enough time, like if you're a championship team, they can contribute. Like Jonathan Kuminga, he didn't play a lot of meaningful minutes, but he had some moments last year in the playoffs for him, I believe. Like, I don't know. I don't know what team it was against, but I feel like he had some moments in the playoffs for them. I just think if you were to give that kid just a little bit more time, a longer leash, he could really help you out and probably extend that window a little bit longer. I think Jonathan Kuminga has that type of potential. I think the same about James Wiseman, though, too. But it's just not clicking for him yet in the NBA. But they got a lot of talented. They got a good young core that you're right, probably is going to be traded away.
Yeah, like Wiseman's a good player. It's just I think it's a confidence issue right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think Golden State's patient enough to develop him. Like, they don't have time to babysit him. Like, you think Steve Kerr's going to, give the guy a pep talk every day when he's got, he's got to worry about Draymond, and if Draymond's going to choke out Jordan Poole. Like, he doesn't have time for that. Like, straight up.
Oh, man. Yeah, Steve Kerr's in a weird position. You got, you got such a great player in Steph Curry who, does nothing, but then you have, the polar opposite in Draymond Green. It's like, damn, how do you even do it as a coach? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good problem to have.
For sure.
I don't know, man. Tristan, I don't know.
Dude, I don't know, but it makes me sad, Tristan. It makes me sad. I don't like to see my boy down and out in street clothes on the bench. I want to see him playing. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see him, shooting in an empty gym at Borges Hospital here in Kalamazoo. I want to see him playing for the Pistons. And if he's hurt, he's probably – I don't even know. I don't like it. He's fragile. That's what I think about Isaiah Livers. I love him. I believe in the talent, but he's fragile. The dude is always getting hurt, and I hate it. I hate it.
I know. It does suck. We do have more questions now. Tony always has I'm just going to say it. Tony has the best trade questions. You guys got to step your game up in the comment section. Tony, I swear, I love this question, by the way. It said, Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel to Atlanta looking to get under the luxury tax for Bogdanovic. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce Frank's last name. To Atlanta for 2023 first-round pick. Bogdan has a player option for next year he likely takes. Can you imagine having two Bogdanoviches in Detroit, though?
Just bombing threes, taking the ball out of Cade's hands, waving them off, getting a screen from Isaiah Stewart, not passing it. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I would love to see that.
I think Atlanta would take this trade if you remove the first-round pick. Because if you gave them Alec Burks and Noel, who next year have non-guaranteed contracts, and they could clear up cap space, I feel like Atlanta would do that. Because I think Burks is just such a spark plug off the bench. He's one of the best bench players right now in the NBA. I think he has a streak of 6 or 7 games of averaging 15 points a game. I know the Pistons were interested in the Bogdanovic from Atlanta before we did trade for Bogey from Utah, but I would be tempted to pull that if I was Detroit.
Yeah, I would too, because I love Bogey now for Detroit, but he's a little bit older, and I've seen Bogdanovic play for Atlanta, and I'm like, dude, he'd be good next to Cade and Ivy. He would be solid. I would like this trade. I love Alec Burke, and I love what he brings to the team, but man, yeah, I would definitely take Bogdanovic and Frank. I can't forget about Frank. Is that supposed to be Frank Kaminsky, or is that a completely different player, by the way?
It might be Kaminsky. It might be a typo. Pretty sure it's a typo.
Because if it's Frank Kaminsky, yeah, dude, I'm all about that.
For sure. Well, we'll get back to the questions, but Tony, thanks for the questions, man. We do appreciate them. This comes from Sean Don Sports. How do y'all feel about going after Kristaps Porzingis if we don't land a big in the draft?
Since Anthony's been bringing up Kristaps Porzingis for a few podcasts now, and I am starting to fall in love with the idea of Kristaps Porzingis in Detroit. I don't know how you make it fit with Duren and Isaiah Stewart, but could you possibly go with all three of those guys in the starting lineup with Cade and Jaden Ivey? I don't know, but yeah, I don't even know how you make it work with Kristaps. If getting Kristaps means we have to trade either Isaiah Stewart or Duren, I don't want it to happen. But if they were saying, hey, we're gonna bring in Kristaps, but we're gonna say goodbye to Marvin Bagley, I would be okay with that. That's a better scenario than losing one of the other two.
Yeah. So I think if you get Kristaps, you're gonna move Isaiah Stewart to the bench. and you're going to play Kristaps at the 4 and Duren at the 5 because you still have your two big lineup.
Yeah, you do.
I think Kristaps is probably going to command a lot of money because he's one of the better players coming out of this free agency class. Because this free agency class, if you look at it, you don't really have a lot of names where it makes a whole lot of sense for the Pistons. There's a lot of role players and veterans, but I think if the Pistons want to compete and get better, I think Kristaps would make sense. It just kind of depends like what the price point is for him. Like if you're saying like around 25 to 30 million, I'm probably out. Like I'd feel more comfortable like around the 15 to 18 million dollar range for his services because I think he does bring a different element. You have a like what 7-1 forward / center that can shoot threes. He can protect the rim with Duren out there. I think it would be pretty interesting, and it would be a really fun dynamic if the Pistons were to get him in free agency.
Yeah, I would be okay if, let's just say the Pistons don't have the big man depth that they have right now. I would be okay with them going out there for like low 20s per year. I think he's going to get more than that. I think 15 to 18 would be a complete steal for him, and that would be incredible. But yeah, I would be comfortable with giving him like low 20s, up to 25 million a year. I'd be okay with that because I do believe in his talent. He is a little injury prone, but it feels like these past few years he's been kind of moving away from that a little bit more because he's not like, I mean, when he was in New York, I mean, that dude was like beating people off the dribble, trying to dunk over people, you know, being a little, you know, trying to be more of an athlete than he is right now, where he's kind of changed his game a little bit to where he's not going to get hurt as much. I'd be okay with giving him money, though, but I like the big men we have. That's the other problem, too. I don't want to see any of them go. I believe in them.
Yeah, it's just I think he's got more of a polished game right now than Stewart. But you have to remember he's been in the league a lot longer than Stewart, too. I think it's interesting, though. I think he'll be a player that a lot of teams look to bring in because I think a lot of teams could use his services, but he's going to be at the top of a lot of free agency teams' boards just to go after. But like I said, I would not be surprised if Detroit has interest in him.
What if he goes to the Los Angeles Lakers and they have Anthony Davis, Kristaps Porzingis, and LeBron James in the front court for 56 games total?
Looking at a 12 seed. I don't know. I know I'm an asshole. This question comes from Taco. He has a question about Jalen Duren. He says, what do you do with Duren if they draft Wembanyama?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't even be concerned with Duren. I'd be more concerned with Isaiah Stewart and Marvin Bagley. I think Duren, out of those three, and I hate to say it, would probably be the last one they traded. I think Marvin Bagley would go first, then Stewart, then Duren. But I don't think anything happens with Duren if they draft Wembanyama. I think that would be one scary front court with those two protecting the rim.
Yeah, if you get Wemby, he's going to be your center. And then you have three centers, basically, on the bench. Kind of like we have now. I think Duren, to me, is probably on the Pistons' priority list to develop the fastest.
Yeah.
Because they're already 3 years in with Isaiah Stewart, and then he has developed. But you look at Duren and just his skill level, and there's a lot there to untap, potentially. So I think Duren would be fine. I think all three of you could have all three of them on the team realistically, because you can play Bagley at the 4 if you want. Like if you want to keep all three, there's a world where you can keep all three and have Wemby on the team. You would just win the rebounding battle almost every night.
So do you think Wemby would be the 5 or do you think he'd be the 4? Because he could play the 4, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he could play center or power forward, but guy freaking moves like a guard out there, dude. It's just, he's just such a unique prospect. And I kind of want to get into this because like I've been seeing it a lot from the NBA. The NBA is covering his game.
I know. It's crazy. Bro, they bought the rights to broadcast him. It's nuts.
They're making money off of his name already. And he doesn't even have an NBA contract yet.
That's insane.
It's sick. It's messed up, dude. Like, they're covering his games already because they're so money hungry.
Yep.
Like, they know he's going to be box office. Like, I believe it was Jonathan Gavoni from Draft Express, but he works at ESPN now, saying that whoever drafts Wembanyama, their franchise will add $15 million just in revenue. That's how box office that kid is already.
That is insane. Do you think, though, okay, let's say the Pistons do draft him. Do you think they could play him in some lineups, like at the 3, with a 2-big lineup, too?
Yeah, because he can shoot and he can handle, dude. Like I think I said he's like Kevin Durant and Rudy Gobert if they had a kid.
Gosh. Not something I want to see, but yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, but I'm not going down that.
I might take a peek. It'd be pretty interesting.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Not touching that. We're going to get back to the questions because you're just a sicko.
Real quick, I do want to say one thing, though, because I think you could with Wembanyama. I think you're right. Maybe you wouldn't have to trade another big man because you could probably go Wembanyama at 4, Duren at the 5, and then just bring Isaiah Stewart and Marvin Bagley. I think even if you draft them, I don't think you'd have to say goodbye to any of them.
Yeah. Like I said, I think there's room for everybody because he's so versatile. This is another Sadiq Bey trade question from Bravo. He said, would y'all consider this? Trade Sadiq Bey or our pick this year, top 3 protected for Mikal Bridges from the Suns?
If this draft class wasn't so loaded, sure. Hell yeah. But you got to keep your pick in this draft class. It doesn't even matter if, like, 1 through 10, you probably got to keep the pick, right? Like, that's how good this draft class is. For sure, 1 through 5, you want to keep your pick. But, I mean, 1 through 10.
Yeah, Mikal Bridges he would fit seamlessly here, but I can't really see a scenario where Phoenix would want to trade Mikal Bridges. I feel like they'd be more open to trading Cameron Johnson than Mikal Bridges. That's just me, though. But like I said, I don't even think they'd be interested in Sadiq Bey. I mean, they're playing really good basketball. I mean, Devin Booker's winning basketball games without Chris Paul, without Cameron Johnson, and without Jay Crowder. Like, Phoenix they're in a similar situation of Golden State. Like, it's championship or bust for them. And I just don't think that they would trade Sadiq Bey because I think Sadiq Bey and Phoenix may be a downgrade over Bridges, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know. I mean, maybe if Phoenix wanted Sadiq Bey traded for Mikal Bridges, yeah, sure. But I can't give up the pick this year, man. I just can't do it.
Yeah, me either. It's just, you're going to want to keep your pick this year because whether you're drafting first or, maybe the Pistons, don't have the lottery luck and they're picking between, 2 through 6, you're still going to get a good player regardless out of this draft class. It's a very guard-heavy draft, which I know Pistons fans probably don't want to hear. You're probably drafting the guard within the first 5 picks because it's just so heavy. Unless you want to reach for like a Whitmore from Villanova, but I doubt it.
I saw his name brought up a few times on Twitter. I forget who was bringing him up, but they were talking about Whitmore from Villanova.
Yeah, I mean, Villanova does produce really good prospects, so it doesn't surprise me at all. You don't usually see them in the top 5, though.
No, you don't. They're like, teens to the 20s or undrafted, and they just play really well. Jalen Brunson, look how much money he just made. Was he drafted in the 2nd round, or did he go undrafted? You think you might have been 36?
I don't know. So this actually comes from Daily Archetype. He said, this pick this year is going to the Knicks, but it's top 18 protected, and they can only swap the pick next year. And after that, finally do away with the heavily protected picks, and they can trade one. You can still trade the pick, though. Just because it's, it would just go to somebody else. Like, that protection was with the Houston Rockets, if you do remember, because we traded Christian Wood to Houston. It's only going to the Knicks because we traded, I believe, for Alec Burks, Noel, and Kimba. Like, you can still trade the pick with protections. So I really don't know why he's saying that. Like, yeah, it's top 18 protected. The Knicks aren't getting it. We'd have to be like win 40, 50 games for the Knicks to even get our pick. It's not going to happen. This is interesting. Comes from Banks. Shout out to Banks. Would y'all rather have a backcourt of Scoot and Ivy and move Cade to the 3 like how they have in Cleveland, or a destructive defense with Victor and Duren?
So I would rather have the destructive defense with Victor and Duren with Cade and Ivy in the backcourt. That would be wow. Because again, like I think if you have, again, having Scoot, Ivy, and Cade, fantastic, but I just think they all do a lot of similar things and they take too much away from each other's games where they're not all going to reach their full potential. But if you have Victor Wembanyama on here with Duren, he's going to reach his full potential no matter what team he goes to, just because of the position he plays at. So, yeah, I would rather have Duren than Victor Wembanyama. Appreciate it, though, Banks.
Yeah, I would take Victor 10 out of 10 times over Scoot. Just because, we were talking, I believe this summer, like, could you imagine Cade with Chet Holmgren?
Yep.
Just because, like, the passing ability, the ability to play the pick and roll and how dangerous that would be. I would rather have a Victor and a Duren combo of destructive defense, because just imagine the pick and rolls that Cade could set up with Victor and Duren.
I know. Just be crazy. Dude, just imagine the two-man game between Victor and Duren. Oh, my God. Ooh.
Yeah, for sure. This is a question from Dominique. Haven't seen him in here in a while. Do you think Bagley's three-point shooting over the last few games is sustainable? If so, what does that mean for the team?
I like the shots he's taking, and I think that's more sustainable. I feel like he's been smarter in making better decisions when he takes those threes, right? Like he's not forcing them; they're kind of flowing within the offense. So I think his decision making in when he wants to attempt a three, that's sustainable. I just don't know about the percentage these last few games and how many he's hit is sustainable.
Yeah, I think I believe it was Keith Black on Twitter, because saying that like if Bagley keeps up the 3-point percentage, his contract, it's like a home run. Like if he can just keep hitting his 3-point shots the way he's hitting it, like that contract, $12 million a year, is a steal. I think his 3-point percentage over the last few games has been very encouraging. I actually love that for him, because I didn't think he was really that good of a 3-point shooter, but he's proved me wrong right now. Like if he can hit league average, then what it means for the team, you're going to have a stretch 4. Yep. Maybe you can do that 2 big lineup off the bench too.
Yep.
You could have 4 big. Imagine if you get Victor and you got, Victor and maybe you play Stewart, and then you have Duren and Bagley. Think about that, dude.
Yeah, I know. It's just crazy. Like, if you really like we're just saying, like Victor Wembanyama, Marvin Bagley, and just say those 3 just in the front court in some lineups. Like, how do you score on that? You know what I'm saying? Like, wow, how do you even stop it? Just crazy. But yeah, like I said about Marvin Bagley's 3-point shooting, the thing I've been most impressed about is just the way he's taking the threes, because not been forced. They've been within the flow of the offense, and they've just been good-looking shots. Like, I just love the way he's taking them. He's becoming a very smart player. I just don't want the 3-point shooting to take away from his bread and butter, which is down in the post.
Yeah, I think he's had moments where he's kind of had to take the 3.
Yeah.
And, like, his shot look, like, his form is pretty nice. But to your point, yeah, I'd like to see him, be in the post more. But, like, if he sets a pick and they're doing a pick and pop, then, yeah, shoot the 3. If you're open, shoot it. I have no problems with that.
Do you think left-handed basketball players have the best jumpers? Don't they look like they have the best? Like Chris Bosh, Jalen Rose, Marvin Bagley. They just got clean jumpers, man. I don't know what it is with lefties.
Yeah, they do. I wouldn't say they have the best jumpers, but it looks very different.
It's clean. It's clean.
Throws you off when you're like watching TV. You're like, "What? Holy shit! What the hell was that?"
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, so this comes from Banks. This is another question. We look at Troy Weaver. We look what Troy Weaver has done so far. When do you see Troy starting to get some heat?
I think Troy Weaver will start to get some heat when he eventually has to trade one of these guys away. Let's see. I don't think Troy will rush a trade because that would definitely bring him heat. But it's just that so many Pistons fans have fallen in love with these young guys that even if Troy Weaver had to trade him away in 2 years, he's going to receive some heat from them. I just don't see Troy Weaver making a boneheaded mistake anytime soon, you know? So I just think it's going to be when he has to trade one of these guys or let one of them walk because there's not enough money or not enough minutes to go around.
Yeah, I think when you'll start seeing some heat is because I know they said this summer they're going to be very aggressive in free agency and they're going to try to get win now pieces. I think when fans are going to start getting impatient, to your point, is how much are they going to give Sadiq and Killian Isaiah Stewart for these extensions?
Yeah.
How much are you giving Cade Cunningham for his extension? I think when you'll start seeing some heat is, like you said, if one of those players out of our core either gets traded or he lets walk or he makes a really bad free agency signing. I think that's the only time you'll probably see heat. I know there have been trades where we just don't agree with it, but, I mean, I've only had the one trade, and that was the Bruce Brown trade.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I think Bruce Brown and Hamidou Diallo are very similar.
I think Bruce Brown is better than Hami, and I think he would. I just think if Bruce Brown had been on this team, though, we probably don't get Jaden Ivey. Because, like, Bruce Brown and Cade Cunningham, that probably nets you a few more wins. I'm not saying Bruce Brown is super talented. It's just, like, the way he plays basketball contributes to winning because he does all the little things. And he's becoming a better three-point shooter.
He developed a lot over his, short time with Brooklyn, and now he's with Denver. I mean, he's definitely a player where I think he could still be on this team, and I still feel like we'd probably get Cade Cunningham with Bruce Brown because he couldn't shoot here in Detroit.
Oh, no, I think you still get Cade Cunningham. I don't think you get Jaden Ivey, though, with Cade Cunningham. I think Cade and Bruce Brown would be too good of a backcourt and net you a few more wins to get Ivey. But I do want to answer Bake's question again. If Troy Weaver extends Dwayne Casey, he's going to get a lot of heat.
Fans are going to be so mad when he's here next year. They're going to be so irritated. Like, they want him gone. They want him gone so bad.
They do. It's like death, taxes, and hate for Dwayne Casey.
Yeah. It's so funny, like, we'll get back to the Q&A in a minute. There's so many Killian Hayes haters out there right now where everyone's talking positively about him. And then, like, I've been, like, in some Detroit Pistons Facebook groups, obviously. And people are, like, taking screenshots of, like, all of his games where he didn't play well, like, showing the box scores of him having, like, 2 and 3 points. Like, they're like, see, he's still trash. I'm like, wow. Like, it's easier for you to hate than give him some props. Damn.
Dude, that's why I've been really open and honest. Like, I said, hey, man, you have made me look like an idiot, Killian. These last, whatever, how many games it's been, 11, 12, whatever, you have made me look like an idiot. And, that's cool. I'm happy to admit that I was wrong for these 12 games. Don't you know what I hate, though, about this whole Killian thing? Every time he plays well, you get those stupid apology things. You know what I'm talking about?
the apology forms?
Yeah, dude. And it doesn't even make sense. Like, some of them are like, I was just jealous of Killian. Dude, yeah. Okay. What? Yeah, I'm not jealous of Killian. I just want him to be good at basketball. Like, Killian's better looking than me. Dude, are you kidding me? I'm not going to admit that.
Even though it's true, but, like...
Well, yeah, okay. So?
We're not getting into that. We do have a question from SJ. It's another Troy Weaver question. If you're Weaver and we land the first overall pick this year and the Magic offers 2 of their first round picks, are you going to trade it?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You gotta keep that first pick. If the Pistons do get the first pick and they do trade it, oh my God, dude, that would probably get some heat for Troy Weaver. No, I don't think you trade that pick.
Yeah, I mean, if Troy Weaver didn't trade, the Cade Cunningham draft pick, he's not going to trade the Victor pick. Like, come on, man. Like, I think Troy Weaver would just draft Victor and hang up the phone. I mean, I remember a few years ago when the Pistons had the 8th pick, and Boston offered the Pistons I think Bill Simmons said it was 7 first-round draft picks or 7 draft picks just to draft Stanley Johnson or something crazy like that.
That's ridiculous, dude. That is, I don't even believe that. There's no way that's true, though, right?
I mean, Bill Simmons would know, man. He's a huge Celtics fan.
7 first-round picks, though?
Not first-round picks. Just 7 draft picks. They were. I think they were it was a bunch of seconds.
Oh no. That's weird. That's really weird. I never heard that before.
Oh, you never heard that?
I didn't know Boston was trying to make a trade like that for Stanley Johnson.
Yeah, they wanted one of the wings out of that draft class. They were really high in Justice Winslow, and they were really. I guess they tried trading with Miami too, and Miami said no.
I do remember. I mean, I do remember there was a lot of love for Justice Winslow from a lot of teams, but I don't remember that specific.
Are you surprised that he's still in the league and Stanley isn't?
No, I'm not, because the thing I liked about Justice Winslow, I did think he was going to be a lot better than he was, but I mean, he can kind of play positions 1 through 4 depending on the lineup. You know what I'm saying? He's a better defender, I feel like. He can actually get to the hole. He can pass the ball. He's just very good at a lot of things. He's not great at anything. And Stanley Johnson I don't even remember what he was good at in Detroit.
He was good at going right and scoring.
Yeah, about 7 points a game.
All right.
87 in a summer league game.
No, those don't count. I could score 87 in a summer league game, and I suck. Casey will get us to the semifinals before he's gone. He's Bob the Builder. Someone else will win the championships. If Casey gets us out of the first round, I bet you Pistons fans actually kind of flip the switch a little bit. They'll want him to stay here.
I don't see Casey. I just don't see Dwayne Casey coaching this team long enough to get them to the second round, past the first round of the playoffs. I would say Dwayne Casey maybe has 2 more years as the coach here in Detroit before they look elsewhere. So, and I just don't see the Pistons making the semifinals in the next 2 seasons.
I just want to win a playoff game, man. It's been so long.
It has been. I forget what it feels like.
2008 was the last time.
God, I was still in high school. Crazy.
Same here. I remember flipping out when we traded Iverson. Traded for Iverson, bro. I got the little when Woj worked at Yahoo. It's just breaking Pistons trade Chauncey Billups to Denver, and I was like, damn it.
I was so hurt by that trade. I was like, dude, Chauncey, really? He's been playing that bad? Why Chauncey? And then, oh man, I just remember thinking they made the mistake keeping Rip over Chauncey. It sucked.
Yeah, it did.
Especially seeing the fucking Denver Nuggets go to the Western Conference Finals, and then Chauncey just playing at a high level for another 2-3 years. It really sucked. That hurt.
Yeah, it really did. We'll do one more question, then we can wrap it up. So we'll spend on for 2 hours. This is a Cade Cunningham question. Do you think Cade is going to be injury prone because of his diet? Well, probably because he's a vegan, and some people. I don't know if everyone knows that he's a vegan.
They should know after the freaking All-Star weekend when Grant Hill told him about beans and stuff.
Beans and cornbread.
Yeah.
Bro, Grant did him so dirty on that. He didn't even get indoctrinated to Detroit. Grant knew what he was doing. He's like peas and cornbread? What? He had no idea. I'm sure I don't know if he's been there since then because he's a pretty hardcore vegan, but I don't think he's injury prone because of his diet.
The only thing sorry, you can finish your thought about this real quick.
Yeah, I just don't think he's injury prone because of his diet. I think that he just gains a lot of weight, and like I said, when your body goes under transformation like that, it's really strenuous on your bones and ligaments, and that's probably why he's out right now.
My only concern is that you look back on athletes that do have the similar diet as Cade. You look at someone like Arian Foster when he was the running back for the Houston Texans. It's a different sport. I understand he's going to take more punishment. I think he only played one full season in the NFL. Damian Lillard, I believe he did the vegan diet for a little bit, but then he had said he lost too much muscle and he was a little bit injury prone. That I think he only did it for a year in Portland. And then I think Chris Paul, I think he's on the vegan diet, and we know about his history. JaVale McGee is one of these players. He's been often injured. Wilson Chandler from Benton Harbor, Michigan, got to throw that out there. He was also a vegan. And I just think as a pro athlete, it's hard for your body to be on a diet like that. And I understand that going like not eating bread and everything is good because bread has a lot of sugar and a lot of sugar causes inflammation. But you do need there's other. I know you can get protein other ways, but I do believe there is something in meat that does something to your body where, like, I don't know, doesn't necessarily make you a little bit tougher, but makes you less susceptible to freak injuries, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it does. I asked somebody about it one time, and there was no real clear-cut answer. And I don't want to sound – I'm definitely not an expert. I'm definitely an idiot when it comes to this stuff. I just one time looked up all of the pro athletes that have been on vegan diets and just looked at their – how many games they played in their respective sport. And a lot of them, they are often injured, which kind of sucks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I remember tail end of the Drummond era. Drummond actually had to change his diet because it took his body 4 days to digest meat.
Oh, wow.
Because he ate a lot of meat. And
yeah.
Do you remember when Drummond got really skinny?
Yeah.
He went vegan. But he didn't get injured.
Yeah. Oh, go on, my bad. I don't mean to interrupt.
His body did go under transformation. He didn't get injured. I think you can play, but it's just I don't want to label Cade injury prone because like the injuries that he has had are just they're freak injuries. Like him getting his ankle stepped on in training camp, freak injury. Him fracturing his tibia because of a transformation. Like happened to Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard added so much weight and he's barely played this year. Like people are calling him like Quad Leonard because his quads are so damn big.
That is an awesome nickname. And I just really quick, I don't want to like condemn anybody being on a vegan diet. I'm not trying to do that at all. I just simply looked at athletes that had been on a vegan diet. And I think it works for some people. I think that I also think though that if you over consume meat, it could be a bad thing too. You know what I'm saying? Like if it took you 4 days to digest, dude, you really should change your diet.
Oh, he did. He got really skinny. I remember that. Like I was like, holy crap, dude! Like that's insane. Okay, I lied. One more question because this is a really good question. Now we can hang it up. I feel like you're gonna have strong opinions on this one. Who did more harm to the Pistons, Joe in his last days or Stan Van Gundy?
I don't. It's hard for me to say anything negative about Joe Dumars because he did bring the championship. And over the past few years, I've realized how much the Davidson family had kind of basically handcuffed him as a GM those last few seasons where they weren't really letting him open up the wallet to go bring in free agents. So it's hard for me really to judge Joe Dumars' last few days. But I always felt like Stan Van Gundy, solid coach, but I felt like he made trades based on emotions. Like I felt like sometimes those trades were like, did he just have a bad day with the player he just traded? Is that why he got rid of him? And I just felt like with Stan Van Gundy, he never gave the team enough time. So I'm going to say Stan Van Gundy's tenure in his last days was way worse than Joe Dumars.
Yeah, so I would probably say Stan Van Gundy too. Stan Van Gundy not only waived Josh Smith, but he traded for Blake Griffin and made us buy out Blake Griffin. I mean, he traded second-round picks like they were snacks.
Yep.
Like, we had no second-round picks for multiple years because Van Gundy traded them all. He traded for players that I think were win-now moves. Like, obviously, trading for Tobias Harris, which I thought was probably his best move as a GM. forcing the Blake Griffin trade, which I just didn't make sense to me. Passing on guys like a Donovan Mitchell in the draft and drafting Luke Kennard. I think Van Gundy set the franchise back, I would probably say 5 to 6 years, because look how long it's taken us to rebuild and have like clean books. Like we just got off Blake Griffin's contract last year. Like that's insane.
Dude, the Josh Smith one went forever. I hated that. How long did that go?
Yeah.
8 years or something?
Yeah, it was pretty insane.
I will say, too, about Joe Dumars, I don't think he was the best at recognizing talent from the GM seat, but I do think he was able to build that Pistons team because he had played against a lot of those players. I don't feel like him as a scout, he was very good. I feel like Stan Van Gundy might have been a better judge of talent, but Joe Dumars was able to build a championship team, and maybe he could have done more with the team. Maybe he could have kept Maybe he could have kept that championship window going more if he could have kept Larry Brown in Detroit and if, they had opened up the wallet for him during free agency.
Yeah, I think they were both terrible at drafting.
They were.
Yeah, I mean, they're not like 1A, 1B. They were like Van Gundy drafted guys like Luke Kennard, Henry Ellenson, just to name a few. Joe Dumars passed on guys like Kimball Walker. He drafted Austin Day,
Yes.
Kyle Singler, Aaron Aflalo. Like a lot of these guys were like they were okay players, but like I didn't even mention like passing on Carmelo Anthony because it's just like it's like taboo. Like that whole draft was just it's so weird. Like maybe you don't get Rasheed Wallace if you draft Carmelo Anthony. Who knows?
That's what Ben Wallace said. Who knows?
Yeah, that's what Ben said. I've heard him say it not only on your podcast but other podcasts too. He's just like he doesn't think that if you do draft Carmelo, you get Rasheed and they don't win a championship and you can't replicate that Tayshaun block. Like
I did convince him though that they should have drafted Dwayne Wade because he wanted Chris Bosh, but I was like, dude, if you get Chris Bosh, you don't get Rasheed. And I'm like, but if you get Dwayne Wade, you could bring him off the bench as a six man. He's like, all right, that makes sense. I was like, all right, cool, thanks, man.
For sure.
I really didn't convince Ben Wallace, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, we're gonna have to get him on this podcast
one day, dude. I hope. I would love to talk to him again because me and him talked about being barbers, and that was one of the coolest conversations I've ever had with somebody. That was really cool for me. That was really cool. Just for him to say how much he respected what I did, that was really cool. It's an eye opener for me.
I'll have to reach out to him, see if we can get him on.
Tell him I said hello.
If he remembers you.
Dude, don't even. I was about to say something. I know he'll probably remember one thing from that podcast, but I won't bring it up on it. But yeah. We never did the Pistons Talk Player of the Win or the weekly game preview, but we're almost 2 hours into this. Real quick, who was your Pistons Talk Player of the Win over the Dallas game?
I got to go Killian.
Yep, I got to go Killian too. And it's pretty obvious. If you didn't watch the game, go check the highlights. We don't have enough time to tell you why Killian was Pistons Talk Player of the Win.
I'll give an honorable mention to Bojan because Bojan was just hitting step back threes. He had 30 points. I feel like Bojan and Killian, either or would have been an acceptable answer.
Yeah, I got to go Killian, though. Bojan, he's been doing that. Killian stepped up in a big way.
For sure.
Are we good with the podcast then?
Did you want to go over the games or no?
We could real quick. The weekly game preview. Memphis and Detroit play Sunday tomorrow. We did talk about that on the last podcast. Detroit at Miami on Tuesday. Detroit at New Orleans Wednesday. Detroit at Memphis Friday. Then Los Angeles Lakers at Detroit. So it's actually like a 5-game slate from Sunday to Sunday. What game are you looking forward to the most?
Probably the Lakers game.
Because of the Isaiah Stewart, LeBron James history?
Well, yeah, Isaiah Stewart was injured, so he didn't get to play.
Oh, yes, this is right.
And Westbrook got cut open recently.
I saw that. Dude, what are the chances LeBron James ducks out of this game? Like he has a injury for load management.
Yeah, a sore back. I'd probably say pretty high.
Okay. We'll see if we even get LeBron in this one. I'm looking forward to the Detroit and New Orleans game just because I want to see Zion Williamson, and I love Brandon Ingram as well. I'd love to see him in Detroit. Just want to watch those two play against the Detroit. That's the game I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, I mean, Pelicans are a good game. I hope we beat Miami because it's always fun beating Miami.
How many wins do you think the Pistons have this week?
2.
So are we saying? So are you going to say they're 2 and 3, or were you just going to stick with 4 games like we have been?
4 games. I think they'll win 2. I don't think they'll beat Memphis tomorrow, unless they like this rest Ja. But I doubt they do that. I do think they get 2 wins. I think they can beat the Lakers because the Lakers aren't a good team. It's just they almost beat the Lakers if they didn't, blow that 14-point lead. I think they'll be more sharp against the Lakers, and I think they have a chance against the Heat.
Yeah, because the Heat are down. They're hurt, right?
Yeah.
So I'll say 2. I'm going to go 3 wins this week just because I'm feeling it. I'm going to say they beat Miami. I'm going to say they beat New Orleans, and then I'm going to say they beat the Lakers because the Lakers are just – I hate the Lakers.
They've been playing a lot better, so,
yeah. We'll see. 3 wins, though.
We'll see.
All right. So thank you guys for listening to the Pistons Talk Podcast. Do us a favor. Go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, and more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.
Peace, guys.